with Michael Borky in the dark here in the 5 o'clock hour.
Let's talk about the Ole Miss game. Lights out somehow.
Lights out. Ole Miss was lights out in the second half.
Yes. Good job. Yes.
Outscored Oklahoma 16-0 after a kind of a ho-hum, lackluster first half. Rebels did what they used to do all the time. They'd gone a couple of games without doing this, which is score on the opening possession. 6 plays, 75 yards, 2 minutes, 24 seconds. Kind of mixed things up, and it was capped off with a 9-yard touchdown run by Henry Parrish Jr. Rebels led 7-0 at that point. Who knew at that point that would be the longest rush play of the game for Ole Miss? Touchdown pass from Jackson Arnold late first quarter made it 7-7. Rebels retook the lead with 7:29 to play in the second quarter on a field goal, 35-yard field goal from Caden Davis after the drive stalled out. That was a 10-play, 68-yard drive with 4 minutes and a half almost off the clock. But then right before the half, really good drive from Oklahoma. 13 plays, 92 yards in 2 minutes and 34 seconds to take a 14-10 lead into the locker room. And Oklahoma got the ball to start the second half. That was a really significant start to the second half for the Ole Miss defense. They force OU into a 3-and-out. Ole Miss gets the ball back. They go on an 8-play, 65-yard drive, takes 3.5 minutes. Caden Prieskorn finding the end zone. Jackson Dart to Caden Prieskorn for a 24-yard touchdown pass. Put the Rebels in front 16-14. They would not surrender the lead again. J.J. Pegues with a sighting in the end zone. And then a Caden Davis field goal early fourth quarter. And then Ole Miss just kind of was content to bleed the clock for most of the rest of the way. Got the win.
Yeah.
Moved to 6-2 on the year. Gave themselves a puncher's chance.
They did. And it's a double-digit win over an SEC team, albeit a bad one. So which do you want? Do you want the positive spin or the negative spin or the truth lying somewhere in the middle? Which one do you want?
I think there's a place we've got to start, Borky. That is a clear place we have to start. Ole Miss's punting game on Saturday was elite.
It was very good.
Fraser Mazin averaged 53 yards and had a 64-yard punt.
Yeah.
Elite.
And Coffin cornered it, too. But
yeah, he did.
I mean, Ole Miss in the first half looked like the first half against Kentucky and LSU. I mean, they had the really good drive to start the game, but then after that, you had a really nice play call on a 3rd and short, and Wright would have, I mean, he had, 15 yards in front of him, would have gotten up to midfield and
dropped it.
Perfect throw, just dropped the ball. And then on the next possession, Dart misses Caden Lehigh, who was open on another 3rd down, nice play call, and just missed him. And you had, on Oklahoma's first touchdown drive, you got off the field on 3rd down, but a horse collar gives Oklahoma a free first down, and then, shortly thereafter...
45 yards of penalties on a single drive.
And so you gifted Oklahoma a touchdown there, and it felt bad. It felt like those games. They just couldn't get out of their own way again, and then they get to halftime, and they are booed, not by everybody, but they're booed off the field, which, by the way, I think is justified. I know some people don't. I think if you pay the money and you're funding the program and you're funding the roster and they poorly perform, the players want to be pros, guess what? That's what happens in the pros. But so you have all of that going on, and they come out of the second half and play the best football they've played all season. Dart was 14 of 17 for 220 and a touchdown in the second half. Defensively, they were...
You've been saying for a few weeks now, really since the start of SEC play, Jackson Dart's got to play better. Jackson Dart played better Saturday.
He played better, and I think they called a nice game, too. I mean, just easy, short passes, and they built his confidence, and then, boom, he hits Jordan Watkins over the top on what should have been a touchdown, but he was about, this far short.
Yeah.
Knee was down, but they played the best football they've played all season in the second half of that game. So what happened? Did they flip a switch? Was it the magic of the squirrel? What happened there, and what team is this? Is it the one that played in the first half, or is it the one that came out in the second half? And truly, the score doesn't reflect how dominant they were in the second half of that game. They pass-protected new offensive line really, really well. Oklahoma's in the top 10 in both sacks and TFLs in the country, and they had 1 sack in the game. Still couldn't run block for anything, but they protected well. They were dominant defensively. Dart was efficient and good. They used the tight ends. So which team that you saw on Saturday is who they are? Is it the second half or the first half or a combination of the two?
Well, I think they're capable of both, which is good and bad, right?
Right.
By the way, paid attendance, 67,926. That is a big number.
Mike says they weren't booed off the field. I guess multiple people and also the audio through the television were lying to me.
There
not
may have been
67,000 boos, but you could hear it as they were leaving the field. So again, I didn't say everybody, but there were some boos as they left the field.
All right, so your question, I think, is a legitimate one. Which Ole Miss team is it? Is it the team that was kind of flat and kind of lethargic and kind of not completely in sync in the first half, or was it the team that in the second half absolutely dominated? And I think there are layers to that answer, right? So we know that Ole Miss is capable, unfortunately, of being the team that they were in the first half. You saw that in the loss to Kentucky. You saw that for part of the game against LSU. Although, I think LSU's pretty good, and they have this uncanny ability to bottle the emotion of Saturday nights in Death Valley when they have a ranked opponent in their place. And it takes them to another level. But Ole Miss also has, I think, the ability to be the team that they were in the second half. Lane Kiffin talked about the depth on the defensive line being part of the reason that they were able to do what they did in the fourth quarter. He's like, our guys are fresh. We're rotating a bunch of them through. And that was with Walter Nolan not playing the second half of the game. And yet they were still able to keep guys fresh and have them out there making plays while clearly Oklahoma's offensive line was wearing down. So we're going to continue this conversation, but I think it's a great question that Borky asked. Which team is Ole Miss? First half Ole Miss, second half Ole Miss, somewhere in between? How do they capture something and hold on to it? So the question that Borky asked, which team is Ole Miss? First half of that game, second half of that game. The good and the bad that I referenced, if they play flat, if the play calling is not diverse, if Jackson Dart's a little off, if they can't block up front, then you get kind of the first half / Kentucky version of this Ole Miss team, and that's a scary proposition over these final four games. Because you're walking into a bit of a hornet's nest on Saturday.
Even though it's 11 a.m., absolutely.
Even though it's 11 a.m., like Arkansas fans came into this season with nothing to be excited about. And their team, by its play on the field, has generated excitement and buzz within that fan base. Now, they are 1 3-touchdown loss, just like we saw 2 weeks ago against LSU, from the Fire Sam Pittman messages popping up all over again. Like, I think that ultimately is what they want. But it's hard not to be happy about your team having success and kind of playing fun style. They've had some really good home environments with a couple of night games. Go figure. Ole Miss wouldn't know. Sorry, I'm just bringing it back to that for you. Hey, Dad. You were fighting. You were the one fighting the good fight.
Hey.
Yeah.
But it is an 11 a.m. game. It's a place where Ole Miss traditionally has not played very well. And when I say has not played very well, I mean House of Horrors.
When's the last Ole Miss win in Fayetteville?
They won twice in Little Rock. They won in 08 and 12 in Little Rock.
The one in
Matt Luke beat him in Little Rock, too.
In Little Rock.
Maybe it's 12 and 19. Maybe 08's not right. The fact that I have to think about it is not a great sign.
What they did in the second half was they didn't shoot they didn't make mistakes. That was to me ultimately the difference. They caught the ball when it was thrown to them, and Jackson Dart looked more comfortable too. I don't know. I think it was
Micah Davis catch and throw was really, really good.
And I can't help but wonder if that just allowed him to go and just relax, because after that he was sharp. I mean that. I don't know, man. I mean, Oklahoma's not a particularly good team, although that defense is good. Like I said, top 10 in TFLs and sacks in the country.
2008. Houston nut over Bobby Petrino.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That first trip up there. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
pay-per-view television broadcast.
Yeah.
Were you on commentary?
Yes, sir.
That's
there
a
you
boy.
go.
Sure was. Harry Harrison and I did that game. It was in the middle of the presidential campaign, and that night was wild in Fayetteville. Sorry I derailed you, Borky.
I'm used to it by now. I'm kidding. But it's you nailed it. That was perfect.
Smoked you.
But, yeah, I mean, they still couldn't run the football. I don't understand the Bentley thing. 5 touches just is mind-blowing. I don't understand it. I never will. Doesn't matter at this point.
I mean, it kind of does, though.
It does. Why is he only getting 5 touches in a football game after he showed you the last time you were out there that he's your home run hitter at running back? It makes no sense, but the Arkansas is a better football team than that of Oklahoma at this point. I don't think Arkansas's defense overall is as good as Oklahoma's, and they protected well. That's what I'm most curious about as they go into the next game. As bad as the offensive line has been for Ole Miss, and it's been bad, and they still did not run the football well, I think in part because they're not playing their best running back, but still, 1 sack against that front is enough. That is enough to move the football, and they did it in that game.
I know Friday is what's the one thing that Ole Miss absolutely must do? So forgive me for jumping ahead. Ole Miss has started fast, right? Opening drive. I think a fast, sustained start for Ole Miss is a huge key. Like, come out with a lot of energy, be excited to play, and then, okay, you score on that opening possession. And then you get to stop. You go score again. You don't have a 5 plays with a holding mixed in there, and you look good on the first play, and you drop a ball, and you have to punt it away, and you just kind of fiddle fart the momentum away. Like that, because I think Arkansas is a team that they're not going to quit. That doesn't seem to be in their DNA. But the hill can become too steep for them to climb in a hurry. We'll see.
And it can unravel on you quick, especially in a place like that. But also, I mean, we've seen this team one time start a game on the road in a hostile environment in a dominating fashion and, I mean, just cruise to that win against South Carolina.
Yeah.
Green presents some interesting challenges. I mean, Arnold is a really athletic guy. I mean, really athletic, and he gave them a little bit of fits. I'm curious to see how they're going to try to defend against Green. But, I mean, although it seems like every linebacker Ole Miss has is limping, but linebacker play for Ole Miss has been really good, and they've done a great job of generating pressure and creating havoc on the defensive line, and that travels. So can they be disruptive enough while containing Green? Because if they can't, if they let him get away like they did Arnold a couple of times early in that game, then Arkansas is going to be in it. But if they don't and they force him to throw the ball, they've got them beat.
Forgive me a longer range view, but this is just a thought that's kind of been going through my head over the last couple of days. Really going back last week. It's like, okay, you got to go find a way to win against Oklahoma. And you got to go find a way to win against Arkansas. And it doesn't matter if it's by 1 or it's by 100 or it's anywhere in between. Just find a way to win. But after that, Borky, Lane Kiffin would disagree, I think. Because it's all pro mindset, and we approach every week the same, and we're going to prepare the same and all that good stuff. I would say, nope, not doing that. And here's the approach that I would take. If Ole Miss is able to win in Fayetteville on Saturday against Arkansas to get to 7-2, when I pull that team together on Sunday for a meeting, I say, boys, let's spend the next 6 days having more fun playing football than we've ever had. We're not going into this game uptight. We're not going into it nervous. You're good. You're talented. We have built a roster to compete with the team that we're going to play on Saturday. And then just let it all hang out. play loose, play easy, play free, take shots when they're there, when they're not, be content to dump it off to Priestcorn, be content to dump it off to Watkins. You saw some of that on Saturday. And clearly this offense is different with Trey Harris not in the game. I'm not so sure that Saturday wasn't a good thing for this team to see, hey, Trey Harris couldn't go. We all know he's good, but we went out and won an SEC team against a pretty talented defense. And Caden Priestcorn was in the mix, and Caden Lee was in the mix, and Jordan Watkins was in the mix, and Daquan Harris was in the mix, and Micah Davis got into the mix. Who am I forgetting? I'm not looking at the stat sheet. I don't have it. I mean, I've got it in front of me.
That was about everybody that caught a ball. Daquan Wright.
Juice Wells was in the mix, kind of caught what was thrown to him.
He didn't. It had, I believe, 3 catches on 3 targets. So,
yeah. Now, there are a lot of people that know so much more football than I know that would say, Richard, you're oversimplifying this thing. I'm not saying don't prepare. And I'm not saying don't be ready and put everything you've got into your game plan and all that good stuff. But if Ole Miss is able to get past Arkansas on Saturday, we've seen Ole Miss in big pressure situations under Lane Kiffin, and they have not performed it particularly well. And I think you got to go mindset approach change from the top down. It's got to be loose and it's got to be fun.